So that's the reason I requested there is somebody in BIT who will be doing that. So hopefully it will be there. There's a MIS YouTube channel. Are you familiar or aware of it? If you're not, you can do a search on YouTube, or I'll provide you the URL next class. Okay, once we do that, I will get to the user stories with college basketball, and then after that, we'll look at your projects. We'll try to start using Scrum with Visual Studio Services, Team Services, which helps you work on projects as a team, and we'll go into some of the things that it allows us to do. And most projects that anything, not only software but also other areas. For example, Mylan has some of their they've had some of their manufacturing facilities now in various countries. I think they are spread over 40 or 50 countries. Yes.
We're having a problem with the Visual Studio Team Services. It's not sending emails to people that I add to the group.
Okay. If you we'll look at it. Some of the 452 students have been exploring it. I'll bring up some of it, but I'll come to that second half of the class. Just want to discuss this UI and controller. Okay. So the first part that we did, once we had the model, we came into the controller, and how did we create this controller? What did we do to create it? Okay, how many of you have this controller? Okay. It's obviously a very simple controller. It's what tells you that this is a controller?
Controller, the word controller after calculating.
It does. Well, this is one indicator, but we can always call a class in the model by the name controller as well, which is not good practice, but we could do it. But what's a more reliable indicator that this is a controller class?
Namespace.
The namespace over here, you mean with this extension? Yeah, that's a more reliable indicator. Because when what does this namespace dot controllers indicate? Where is that coming from? What's that? Not quite. This indicates, like earlier, when we were working with models, if you go up, it says dot models. So where do you think that, what the indication? Dot controllers, dot models. It's very obvious, other than somebody other than Eric. Are you paying attention to, one of the things you have to do is to pay attention to what's happening. It's very obvious. Yeah, Liv?
They all belong to that project.
They belong to the project, but also more obviously what?
It's like a file directory.
Yeah, that's a directory.
So you've got the first MVC app project, and then because it's an MVC app, it has model views and controllers built into it. And it's just directing it into that namespace.
Yeah, as soon as you create an MVC project, you will see these directories. Model, view, controller. The scripts are for usually JavaScript or cascading style sheets, but the model view controllers, the MVC. So anytime you're talking about a particular type of application, you want to understand why it is called so and what within it distinguishes it as being an MVC application. And in this case, each one represents some particular component of the MVC, and each one goes into its own designated slot. So that's, as Eric pointed out, a more reliable way of saying, well, this class is a controller class rather than just the name. But there's something even more, that there is some other indicator that's even more definitely stating it's a controller class, even more than the fact that it is in this directory. What's that? How many of you know what this colon stands for? Very easy.
I don't know, I guess inheritance.
Yeah, it stands for inheritance, and what does inheritance do?
Gives you the attributes of the calculator class.
Is it getting you the attributes? What is this saying, Megan?
It's using everything that you had in the calculator controller method, but then you can customize it to the controller.
This is a class that we are creating called calculator controller. So are we saying, is this saying that it is getting everything that's in the calculator class? Well, what is it saying here?
It's saying that the calculator controller is inheriting all the things from the controller class.
Yeah, the controller class. So this is inheriting calculator controllers, inheriting from controller, not from calculator. And so who created the controller class? Did we create it? It's provided through the .NET library. So this colon here is indicating it's being inherited. So that's the clearest indicator that this is a controller class. We are using whatever .NET provided, and that there are a lot of built-in functionality that's built into the controller class. We are just adding whatever we need by inheriting. So as soon as we said we are creating a controller class, it created this, and this was the simplest method. And we said we modified it slightly. Okay, and we said we are returning a view result, and this view is going to be a very simple. We start off with mostly it's going to be, you can see it said a get method. So if you want to make it very explicit, you can use this property within square brackets on top to say HTTP get. In this case, it's not absolutely required. It would be required only if you have two methods by the same name with the same signature, which we will see. I'm sure we'll have a few examples of that. But for now, so whenever we are saying get, it is getting from where? Getting a view or data or whatever. I'll just say data from. Where does it get it from? Yeah, Logan?
The server and database.
Okay, the server, essentially, it interacts with the server, and next class I'll set up a database, here a SQL Server database. And if you're getting the data from the database, it goes through the server to the database. Okay, so that's what this is doing. And each time you have a controller, the controller but it's only going to it's going to get the data from some place. Usually it's going to communicate, many cases, with the model. But in this case, there is really nothing to display in the form of data. It's only going to get whatever needs to be for displaying a view. So this controller, we said, is going to get associated with this fine Fibonacci view. And how did we create this view? What's the simplest way to create a view? Did we go in and create a folder called calculator? What did we do? I don't know if you remember what we did. We just highlighted the method, right-clicked and said, add view, right? And that created the view by the same name as the method in the controller. And initially we are starting off as an empty template. There's a lot that you can do. You can see that there are all the other templates for our views, but for now we are just going with this empty template. So when we created it, what did it do? It went into the views directory, but not only did it go into the views directory, but what else did it do? Pardon? Shared was, I don't know if it was already there or not, but when we create this, there's one thing that definitely happens, and what's that? I should have checked if shared was shared there prior to us creating the view. I forget now. But the more important thing that happened was what? Should be very obvious. What did it do? If I said shared was not as important, what's more important? What else do you see inside views? The calculator. So what is this calculator directory or folder corresponding to? No, it's corresponding to something else. What's that? You have that?
The calculator class that Fibonacci is in.
The calculator class. So the controller is always the suffix. Every controller class by convention uses controller as the suffix. So the naming convention allows .NET in MVC to figure out that the view should go into or belongs to this controller or is associated with it. And how does the naming convention work? It takes this the controller class name and makes it the name of the folder. And then what else does it do? We discussed why is this called CS_HTML instead of just .html. What do you think .cs, the first part, stands for? Yeah, it's C#, so it allows C# code to be added on with HTML. So where did it get the file name? When we said we are creating a view, we said we are creating it for this method. So, so it calls it by the same name as the method by default. And then we then started writing in some code. This is the part to display, which is very, very basic. But then we are going to get some input from the user and send it back to the controller. And we are going to send it back to a method called find Fibonacci inside of the calculator class. So that's what we are indicating here. Okay, so if we were to just run this, what would it show? Yeah, it's just there's just a header saying find Fibonacci. That's about it. So you should be seeing this. Okay, so just want to make sure all of you have this in the runner. Why isn't it working? So you shouldn't have your email open. If you're having your email open, you can leave. It's not going. If the question is, if it's not working, try to figure out why it is not. Okay, let's figure out. Why was it's still continuing with that? Try using the lab machine. Do you have a pen drive? Okay, one of the things you want to make sure is, let's see, we have, how many projects do we have? We have a modeling project. Did all of you add this in? But the two that we have are from the beginning, the MVC application. This is the web application and the test. So which of these will run when you try to build and run the application or the project? Which do we want to run? It's the web application. So make sure when the thing, the bold facing here indicates that this is the active project. If this is not, then you have to right-click on it and set as startup project. So that's one thing. Just make sure that's there. After that, make sure you build the solution to make sure that there are no errors. Because obviously if there are errors, it's not going to work. And once you have that set up, then you can go into debug. You can either start debugging is only if you want to try to catch errors. If not, you can start without debugging. If it's not working, if you're getting errors, you can try to put breakpoints and go in through the debug mode. So the first step, it's going to come into the controller, into this method. So if you put a breakpoint, and if I were to run it in debug mode, it basically would not display anything because it would, well, let's see, one of the things, the other thing you might want to look at if you're getting an error is it tries to display whatever page you're currently on. And currently are we on a page or a file that can be displayed? The answer is no, because it's a controller. So this is the page that we want to display. And so let's say that if you go into your, so let's say we want to set this up as a starting page. So you go into your project, you can just set a start page, or you can go into your app properties. You go into web, under app properties for the project. And instead of starting from the current page, so if you are on the controller, it will try to start the controller rather than a view. So you can say, I want to start a specific page rather than the current page. And the specific page for us, what would that be? It's inside of the calculator directory, and find Fibonacci.c. Well, I don't think you even need to give the extension. Let's see, I think the extension is optional. So find Fibonacci, and then let's see, I also need to specify, so the calculator clause, and then the name of the method, which is find Fibonacci. Okay, so now if I were to start it, start debugging. If I start debugging, anytime I have a breakpoint, what should it do? Anytime you have a breakpoint, it should stop at that point. So, which is what it's done now. It's come into the controller, and we have a very simple view that we say we are going to display. Okay, so from the controller, let's see if I can stop it at any point here. Okay, so where is it stopped now? It stopped first in the controller, and then I have a breakpoint in the view, right? And then again it stops in the view where I have the breakpoint, and then it goes ahead to display. Okay, so how many of you have this being displayed? This is inside of the CSS.html file. Okay. You shouldn't be having errors. Is it double click on it and see where is it? It's plus. At using statement, this at, what does this at do? Do you remember from last class, what does the at indicate? What does it do? Header HTML tag, right? But so that's, if you are just using these tags, it will just be .html. But this here constitutes, this is a method here. So if you're dealing with methods and classes, where are we? What are we dealing with? It's no longer just HTML, it is C#. So this @ symbol here indicates we are dealing with C# code. Anything with that. Okay. So Kash, if you're having any, just make sure it's very simple. At this point, we have not added in very much. We are just saying this is the HTML, but we want to pass in some data to the controller. The user is going to give us like a Fibonacci number, a term number, and we are going to find that particular term. Okay, so all that so instead of just having this, just the label for the page, we want to add in some prompt for asking the user to enter. So I wanted to start off with something very simple before we started looking at having the user provide some input and then using that for our processing. Okay. So obviously, if this is not working, if you go to the next step, it's not going to work. So let's add in the part about where we prompt the user, get a value from the user. So we'll use very simple. We are not going to be formatting much. Again, I'm using the @ symbol to access the built-in HTML class. It's actually a property of this WebView page class. So I'm going to use this. There are several properties or methods associated. They're called HTML helpers, which helps with formatting instead of us typing out the entire HTML. So here, for example, I just say enter term or Fibonacci term, something to it. So basically we are saying, okay, go ahead and enter whichever term you want to view. That's a label that shows up. And then you say, there are again several ways you can get the value, but the simplest is using a text box. And what you have inside of the text box, and if you look at it, the IntelliSense will show up. Okay, so it basically tells you that no method for text box, no version of text box, it takes up 0 parameters. So whatever you have inside of this method is the name of the variable that you want to pass on to the controller. Okay. So for example, in this case, what is it that when we built our calculator class, with find Fibonacci, so if I go to the model, okay, what is it that find Fibonacci is expecting? An input term. So we can call this whatever we want to. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it just helps to indicate that this value that we're getting from the user represents the input term. Okay. And then finally, you might want to do a break. So if you just were to run this now, if I save this and run it, debug, start without debugging. Okay, so you have this prompt followed by the text box. Okay, so now if I just went ahead and just included a button, and I'm going to make it very simple here. If I just did this, input type is a button. And let's see, I'll just say value equals find Fibonacci number. So if I were to run this, it just gives me this button right next to it. So in this case, it's probably okay. If you wanted to, if you had multiple values to be entered, the simplest thing you could do is to just have a break to separate the input from where the user clicks on the button. You can, obviously there are a lot of formatting and styling that you can build into your web pages or the view pages. Okay, so at this point we have our HTML page, the view page set up to accept an input from the user, and we are saying that whatever the user provides is going to go to, this is the name of the controller, the class, and this is the method that we are going to send it to. And we are saying that this is not going to be a get, but a post method. And what does the post do? We said here when it's a get method, it's getting data or whatever information from the server, but the post method does the opposite, which is sends it from the client. What's the client? And this actually, it's what does, we are using Visual Studio, but what will the regular user use, the end user? Whatever browser, the browser serves as the client. So the client that the user is using is going to communicate with the server and send it to the server. Okay, so we said that so what did we indicate here? It's going to be coming into the calculator class, which is this class, calculator controller class. And what else are we indicating here? It's method, it's a post method, it's a calculator class, and what else? What's this indicating? This is the name of the, if you see the IntelliSense, it tells you the first parameter is what? The action. The action and in a class the action is carried out by what? By a method, right? So now there is an issue here because we said we are sending the data back to a method called find Fibonacci. So the first method that we have here is not sending the data to the server. Instead, it's getting it from the server. So if I create this public, this is going to be again, it's going to be a find Fibonacci method. So, and then after it finds it, we are going to send a result. Okay, so if I had this, let's see, find so there are some problems here. The first thing is with a method, what's missing from what a basic method requires. Okay, the return type. And in the controller, for most part, we're going to be returning view results. Okay, the views that go to some particular view that we are sending back to the user. Okay. And obviously, we are not returning any view, so I'll just say return view as we did earlier. So this now has a data type to be returned. Okay. But why is it still complaining?
You already have a method called Fibonacci unit, so
Yeah. Yeah. So the issue is it's exactly the same name, but it also has the same signature. What does it mean by the same signature? It's the same return type, and it's the same parameters, no parameters. So, but this one that's going to be doing the work of getting the data and then doing some form of processing and sending back the result, what does this require that this doesn't require? This is just showing this first view, but the second method needs to get the data that the user is providing. Okay. So for it to do its work, it requires whatever value the user has entered. So what we are needing to do is have a what? A parameter, and this is the input term. And one of the things, unless you do some extra work, the parameter name should be exactly the same as the name of the variable into which you're accepting the input. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. And what's missing here for this parameter? Okay, EJ? Okay, type, what's the type here? Okay, so now we have pretty much most of what we need. What we don't have is we need to be able to use this value to find the actual Fibonacci number. Now, we don't want to do all the work here that we already created the logic, tested it, and so on. Where did we do all of this work? Okay, in calculator class. So calculator, I just said calculator, is it recognizing it? It's not, so why is it not recognizing? Anyone other than Megan? Where is this calculator class? It's in a different namespace inside models. If you go into this quick actions using whatever app last name dot models, then it recognizes the calculator class. And the method that we want to use is find Fibonacci number. And remember that we made it from an object or instance method into a what type of method? A static method. Now, as Megan pointed out, this belongs to the class. So as soon as I did calculator dot, it should show up. If you didn't convert it into a static method, what should you do? Create an object. So if you didn't convert it into a static method, you have to create a new instance of the calculator class. And this obviously requires the parameter, which in this case is input term. Okay. And what's it promising to do? The method brings back return, so what do you need to do here?
Return an integer.
Okay, it's going to return an integer. And now there are several ways of sending this data over to the number. In this case, it's a single value. Well, at this point, you don't have we are going to do the simplest thing to capture the data into what's called a view bag. So view bag is a built-in property that we will. What we'll do is we'll say, okay, we can associate a lot of variables with a view bag and send the data that the view bag holds over to a view. So I'm going to say view bag dot Fibonacci number, and what's the value that it's going to hold or take over to the view. What do we want to pass on to the view? It's this value here, right? So it's just the, okay. Now, this is just getting, how many numbers or values is it getting? Just one, right? What if we want the entire sequence up to this point? What would we do? Do we have a way of finding the entire sequence? Okay, try it out and see what you would do. I want the entire sequence, not just the 6 terms. So basically, the user input 6, I want it to be term 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, you need to calculate it cost. Do you have it?
Yeah, I just put it in there.
You have it as calculated controller. It's not calculated controller, it's just the calculated cost. Is it now still not working there? Did you fix the areas?
Most of them, but this contact from models.
Well, the thing is,
There's some things.
well, is it, well, then this highlight over that and this fix. What are the options?
Models that
It says giving the option of selecting select the using statement. Do you understand what using does?
yes.
If it's in any other space, you have to get that namespace, which is different from wherever you are. You have to bring that namespace in. It's calculated classes in what namespace? Yeah, so that's why you are saying using the. Okay, what we are going to do is a few things. One is, so I asked you find if you're just finding the Fibonacci number. The other is if you're finding the Fibonacci sequence. So calculator dot find Fibonacci sequence. the way you call it is similar. What's going to be different here? This main thing is to what I'm looking to see is if you're understanding the signature of methods. It's fairly straightforward. If you look in the signature of the method, it tells you what it's doing. So if I were to say I'm receiving it into let's say int Fibonacci sequence. Why will this not work?
Because your return where you get an int, but it's really a list.
Okay, so the concept that I wanted you to get from this was, if you look at the method and you need to start reading method signatures, understanding them, what's it saying? It's saying it needs an input, which is an integer, and it's going to return a list of integers, not a single integer. And as EJ pointed out, this has to be changed to what? A list of integers. And just like I'm sending the view bag, the Fibonacci number in the view bag, I can also say I'm sending the Fibonacci sequence in a view bag. So these are considered two different variables associated with the view bag. And you'll see how we can display each one of these in the view. And I'm going to create a different view instead of just sending it back to find Fibonacci. I'm going to send it to another view called Fibonacci result. The other thing, to make it more explicit, I'm going to also say, instead of this being a HTTP GET method, this is a HTTP. Which of these options do you think? Yeah. Post, we specified there are only two we are going to use, either the GET or the POST, and we specified this is posting or sending data to the controller and then the server. So this is going to be a HTTP POST method. And sometimes you want to make it very explicit, that way there is no confusion as to which is the method that's displaying the initial view and which is processing and sending the response back to the user. And what we are saying here is we are going to create a view called Fibonacci result. Okay. So there are various ways of creating views. So we will go directly into the, I'll just copy this, Control C. I'll go into the calculator folder, right click, add view, and I'm going to call this view name Fibonacci result. I'm just going to keep it very simple, so I'm going to keep it as an empty template. and add it in. But the main thing is I need to make sure it's going into the calculator folder under views. Why do I need to ensure it's going in the calculator folder? It's the class, it's the controller class they're using, so the convention requires that it go into that particular folder. If you put it in any other folder, it's not going to be able to find it. Okay, so I'm going to add it in. And first we will just display the simple version, which is just the, it's going to be just a single value. Okay, so the single value is going to be, let's see, where do I, I'll just say the Fibonacci number is, title, Fibonacci result. If you want to use this, you can see the view bag, this is the variable for the title. So let's say you want to just keep reusing this. So instead of retyping, you can say, you need to use view bag dot title. It should be showing you Fibonacci result here. And then what we want to display is something like the Fibonacci number is, and where do we get that number from? What did we say is going to carry it over? What is literally transporting the data from the controller to the view? Fibonacci number, but normally it's we have a variable called Fibonacci number, but that's only available in the controller. So, but we did something extra to be able to transfer the data. What did we do? Left?
The view bag?
Yeah, the view bag is what carries, it's literally a bag that carries the data over to the view. So we can set up as many variables as we want here to carry data over. So we have how many variables is the view bag carrying from the controller? 2, one for the Fibonacci number, another for the sequence. Okay. So we'll first use the simpler option, which is just the number. So view bag dot, and IntelliSense won't find it, so we have to make sure that we are using the correct variable, which is Fibonacci number with uppercase F. Okay. So let's see, we want to display this. So I'll run this. If you want, you can put breakpoints to see what's happening. Okay, so let's say I put a breakpoint here inside. Well, let's see. Okay, put a breakpoint here in the first find Fibonacci, and then I put another breakpoint here in the find Fibonacci view, and then I have my find Fibonacci result, and I'll put a breakpoints in right here. Okay, so let's just run this in debug mode. So start debugging. Now, this allows you to trace the path and see what's happening. So first I come to the view first I come to the controller for the first view, so it should try to say whatever the view is to get the data from the user. Okay, it prompts me for some input. I'll just say 6. Okay, so it should take this. Let's see. Which means that at this point, has it gone in? It's not activated it, so let's see why it would have not activated. So let's see. So which means that this input type button is not sending it over to the I said I used button, and this is plain HTML, so it just shows the view as a button, but it's not submitting the data. So whatever I did here, the button is just displaying it. So if you want to actually send it over, it's not send it over to the controller and the server. You have to change it from type button to submit. And if you want want it to be a button, let's see if this continues to be a button. Let me now run it again. I'll close this here. So the type, if you just keep it as button, it's not getting activated. Change it to submit. Let's see if it shows a button, which then gets submitted. Okay, let's see, 6. Okay, did it go there now? Okay, how can you say it has gone back into this controller? You can see that the location of this, where it is in the program. Also, when you check the parameter, it should say whatever value entered, so it's basically inside here. From here, what do you think is the next step if you were to use one of these where it says step into, step into, step over, step out? If I were to say step into, where do you think this will go? Is this the next step? What is the next step? Well, somebody other than Chris, what is the next step?
It would go into the method, and it would enter the find Fibonacci method. Fibonacci number, so it would go over to let's try to calculate we are currently inside find Fibonacci in the calculator class, right? So what's the next step? You said find this class exists where? Yeah, it exists in the calculator class. Okay,
inside calculator class, it's going to come into this. If I were to put a breakpoint here, and if I were to run this, the next stop is inside of this. Okay, so this is called, so this is the object-oriented approach. Where did we start? As far as the user was concerned, they started in the, what is it that they see?
They started in the visual, like the controller, the visual. No, they don't see the controller. The only thing they can interact with is the view. So whatever they enter in the view comes to the controller, and the controller in turn uses the model to do its processing. So, which is why you can, if you put breakpoints, it'll be here, and then if we continue on, it calculates the value for the sixth term. The Fibonacci number is 5, and now what's it going to do? The viewback is going to hold the value 5, and what's the next step? This is for the sequence, so I'll just let it flow through. So at this point, if we continue further, we'll come to the result, and what does the result do? It's going to try to display this particular number, which is 5. Okay, so do you have this? How many of you have this? Only 1, 2, 3 of you. Wow. The result of CS60MO is a view which one did you? I just tried but that's a dot CS. It's not CS. It should be a dot CS60MO, so which means you have to go to the view. So your views are, so you know this clause, the result clause, the result is not a C# clause, it's a CS HTML file, which you create by, in this case, since it belongs to the calculator controller, it's corresponding to, so you have to go into views, into the calculator folder, and then over there you're creating a view. Okay. So this is to display just the number. Okay. So it's Megan, Logan, and EJ. The three of you have it. Okay. Who else? Okay. So right now, what we have done is again small increments. We have not what we started off with in the beginning of the class was just displaying this label. We have added in something to prompt the user for some input, and then we are trying to submit that input. And earlier, the mistake I had made was to indicate that this was a button object, but the type, if you wanted to send it over, is to change it type to submit. Okay. And once it gets submitted, you want the controller method to use the whatever we have already built and tested to do its work. It comes back with the number, and we capture it into a viewback. We have not yet used the viewback for the sequence. We have just used the viewback for just the number alone. So if you go into result, you can display this. Now, obviously, the viewback on the controller is also having the entire sequence, right? But can we just display the sequence? So similar to this, could we just say the Fibonacci sequence is would this work? Try it out and see if it works. And let me just run this again. Start with our debugging. Let's see what happens if I give the same 6 are, let me give 8. Okay, so it comes back with 13, the Fibonacci sequences, and it doesn't know what to do with this. Why doesn't it know? Because it is a collection, right? Multiple values. If it's a single value, it can display it. So what I want you to work on and try to figure out is, whenever you have multiple values, what did we say we needed to do? We discussed this whenever we have a collection. What's almost always associated with a collection? Yeah, Megan? Well, this is a list is holding the collection of objects, in this case a set of integers. But whenever we are trying to process it, what we are trying to do is look inside this list and get one value at a time to display, right? So what is the programming structure or concept that we have to apply? What did we use inside here to find this sequence? Yeah. A loop. Yeah, you can, so you can use a simple for loop. You can use a more complex version of it, which we will discuss, but I want you to apply this. The more complex version of it is called a for each loop, but we'll get to that. But I want you to try to use this for loop to see how you can process it so that your result is not just like this, but instead, what should it be? Should be starting with what's it, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, and so on up to the 8th item. The other thing is, can you also, so right now we are saying the Fibonacci number is 13. So instead of that, let me use a smaller number so I can actually put that in. So if you want to go up to the 5th term, so what I would like for you to work on before coming to class, one is, of course, try to create your Visual Studio Team Services account. The other that I would like you to do is, so I want you to say the Fibonacci, not only say the Fibonacci number for the whatever the term is. In this case, I think I provided the 5th term. So I'd like you to provide this for the 5th term. The Fibonacci number is 3. Okay. So this obviously should vary depending upon whatever the user provides. So I'll just say for the nth term, whatever the user provides, the Fibonacci number is this, and the Fibonacci sequence is, instead of saying this, it should say 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. So this is the 5th term, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is what I would like for you to do before you come to class, so that sort of makes you think through how you make the connections between the layers, how you process it. And after you do that, for your group, try to do this, creating a group on Visual Studio Team Services to connect with the other team members. If you're not able to do it, we'll go through that in class. Okay, so that's your requirement or homework before you come. Yeah.
I have a question about
So before coming to class, please make sure you're having it working Otherwise, it's, and we'll also get into the other larger application which we discussed, which we said we'll be using, which is the college basketball application.